Okay, so today we're going to dive into something pretty major happening right now with U.S. immigration.
Hmm.
It's the end of this temporary legal status for a whole lot of people.
Yeah, over 500,000.
Over 500,000. Wow.
Yeah.
And specifically, these are folks from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela.
Right.
And they were told initially to leave the U.S. by April 24th.
That's right.
It's a big deal. So this all goes back to a program started by former President Joe Biden.
It does, yeah.
And it allowed people from those four countries we just talked about to live in the U.S. for like up to 2 years.
Yeah, up to 2 years.
So what was the thinking back then under the Biden administration?
Well,
Like, what was the situation that made him create this program in the first place?
so from what I've read, Andrew Tsai over at the Migration Policy Institute, he pointed out a couple of big things.
Okay.
First, you had all these countries dealing with just massive crises, political instability, economic troubles, just widespread violence.
Makes sense.
It was really bad for people living there.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the U.S. government was having a real hard time actually deporting people back to these places.
So it was kind of like a practical issue, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about offering a safe haven. It was also that sending people back was just really difficult at that time.
Yeah.
So this program, it basically gave like a legal pathway for something like 500,000 people to come to the U.S.
Okay.
for this set period of 2 years.
2 years. Got it.
It was meant to be a kind of temporary fix for this really complex situation.
A temporary fix. Interesting. And they did this through this thing called humanitarian parole, right?
Yeah, that's the mechanism they use.
Which I guess is like permission to be in the U.S., but only for a while and at the government's discretion.
Right, exactly. It's not a permanent thing.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the Biden administration was trying to address like both the humanitarian side and the practical challenges of dealing with these countries.
Absolutely. They were trying to find a solution that worked on multiple levels.
But then the Trump administration comes in and they're not so keen on this whole thing.
Yeah, they weren't on board.
They suspended the program and now they're moving to end it completely.
That's right.
So what's their reasoning? What's their main argument against it?
Their big argument is that Biden using humanitarian parole in this way for so many people, it was overstepping his authority as president.
Okay.
They're saying such a big immigration policy change that should be up to Congress to decide.
So it's a power struggle.
In a way, yeah. They're saying Biden acted improperly and these folks should have to leave.
So it's not about the people themselves or the situation in those countries. It's about the process.
Yeah, that's a key part of their argument.
They're saying it was the wrong way to go about it.
Exactly.
And it's important to remember these aren't people who, snuck into the country or anything.
Right.
They came here legally. They followed a process. They thought they were allowed to be here.
Absolutely. That's a really important point to remember.
And a lot of them had sponsors here in the U.S., right?
Yeah, a lot of them did.
Like family members or groups that vouched for them.
Exactly. It could be family members, community organizations, churches, veterans groups, all sorts.
So these folks had support systems in place.
Yeah, they had people here who were helping them and looking out for them.
And they were allowed to work legally too, right?
Yes. For those 2 years, they had permission to work.
So they were contributing to the economy.
Right. They were working, paying taxes, becoming part of the community.
They were building lives here with the understanding that it was all above board.
Exactly.
And now that rug's being pulled out from under them.
It's a huge change for them.
So legally speaking, where do things stand right now with this policy change?
Well, as of last Tuesday, technically, these folks are considered to be in the country without authorization.
Wow, just like that.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
And there was that court case on Monday. Could that change things?
It might cause a little delay, but most experts like Andrew Tsai, they think this policy is going to go through.
So it's not looking good.
Not really.
So what can these people do? What are their options if they want to try and stay here legally?
Well, some have already applied for asylum.
Makes sense.
That's one route.
And are they likely to get it?
Well, it depends. For Cubans specifically, they've got this other option.
Okay.
They can apply for legal residency after being in the U.S. for a year under the Cuban Adjustment Act.
Right. I've heard of that.
And a lot of Cubans, over 100,000, came in under this program.
Wow.
So it's likely a good chunk of them have already started that process.
To become legal residents.
Exactly.
But for everyone else, asylum is probably their main hope.
Yeah, for a lot of them, that's the main legal path they've got.
But even then, there's no guarantee, right?
No, not at all. And unfortunately, a lot of them are going to end up vulnerable to deportation.
Vulnerable to deportation. That sounds like a logistical nightmare. How do you even start to deport that many people?
Yeah, Enforcement is going to be a huge challenge.
I bet.
You've got a lot of these people who got work permits that were good for 2 years.
Right.
So their employers might still think they're allowed to work, even though technically their status has changed.
That's interesting. So it's not like it's immediately obvious to everyone.
Well, not at all. It's going to be messy.
And how's the government going to find all these people?
Well, they'll probably start with the addresses people gave when they first applied for the temporary status.
So the same paperwork that let them in could now be used to track them down?
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But that's probably what they'll do.
So what happens if they get caught?
Well, then it's up to the individual to prove they have a legal right to stay.
Like what?
Like if they've got a pending asylum claim,
Okay.
or if they're eligible for the Cuban Adjustment Act, something like that.
So they got to have their ducks in a row.
Basically. And you can bet some people are going to try and disappear.
Move around, avoid getting caught.
Absolutely. It's human nature.
And with 500,000 people spread out across the country, that's got to be like finding needles in a haystack.
It's going to be a tough job, even if the government thinks it's easy because of the paperwork.
Yeah. Finding people is never as simple as it seems. Yeah. So let's talk about asylum for a minute.
Okay.
Given the situations in these countries we've been talking about, like, what are the chances these folks would actually be granted asylum?
Well, under the current rules, a lot of them probably have pretty strong cases.
Really?
Yeah, you think about the political repression and human rights abuses in Cuba,
Yeah.
Nicaragua, Venezuela.
Yeah.
I mean, that's textbook asylum stuff. People have a legitimate fear of persecution if they go back.
Right.
And then Haiti, I mean, it's just incredibly dangerous and chaotic there.
Sure.
The government barely has control.
It's a tough situation all around.
It is.
But even with a strong case, getting asylum's not exactly a quick process, is it?
No, it's definitely not. The system's completely swamped.
Yeah.
People are waiting 4 to 6 years just to get a hearing.
4 to 6 years.
Wow.
That's the reality, Rachel.
So even if you deserve asylum, you're stuck in limbo for years.
It's a long and stressful process.
And that's all assuming the rules stay the same, right?
Right, because that's the big unknown. The Trump administration, they've talked about speeding up asylum hearings.
And making it harder to qualify.
So the rules could change by the time these cases actually get heard.
Exactly. So even if someone seems like a slam dunk for asylum right now, it's not a guarantee.
It's a really uncertain situation.
It is.
So let's say worst case scenario, someone gets ordered deported.
Okay.
Can the U.S. actually deport people back to these specific countries?
That's another can of worms. You run into all sorts of problems trying to do that.
Like what?
Well, for one, you've got the diplomatic side of things. Like
Okay.
Venezuela, they haven't always been cooperative about taking back their citizens.
Really?
Yeah, it's been inconsistent. And Cuba and Nicaragua, they've pretty much refused to accept deportation flights.
Wow, so you can't just put someone on a plane and send them back?
Not necessarily. It's not that easy.
What about Haiti?
Haiti, they're probably more likely to accept people back, but they're dealing with their own huge problems.
Right.
So it's complicated all around.
So you could have a situation where the government detains people but can't actually deport them anywhere.
Exactly. It's a real possibility.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So it's not just about immigration law. It's about international relations, too.
Absolutely. The two are totally intertwined.
It's all connected.
It is.
So to sum this all up, we've
Yeah.
got the Trump administration ending this temporary legal status program,
Right.
affecting over 500,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
These folks came here legally, and now they're facing this really uncertain future.
Yeah, a lot of them could end up getting deported.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in the legal and political stuff.
Yeah.
But we got to remember, these are real people with real lives.
Absolutely. These are individuals and families who came here looking for safety and opportunity, and their whole lives are getting turned upside down.
Yeah, it's a human story at the end of the day.
It is.
And this whole situation, it just makes you think about how messy immigration policy really is.
Mm.
You've got diplomacy, you've got legal battles, you've got the impact on actual people.
It's complicated.
It really is.
Mm.
So I guess the question for all of us is, what does this tell us about how immigration actually works in practice?
Yeah, it's a good question to think about.
Because clearly it's not just about laws and rules. There's
Yeah.
so much more to it.
Definitely. There's the human side, the international side. It's all intertwined.
And it's something we need to grapple with as a society.
Absolutely.
We need to figure out how to balance all these different factors.
It's a challenge.
It is, but it's a challenge we can't ignore.
I agree.
Because at the end of the day, it's about people's lives.
Right.
And we have to do better for them.
We do.
All right, well, that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.